All right, what's up, everyone? Quick impromptu live stream to address what happened last night or yesterday at around 3:30 in Knicks-Pistons, something that has obviously generated a bunch of controversy around the NBA community and among Pistons fans who feel that they've been cheated out of a potential 2-2 series. I'm going to address all this. I'm going to get into it. Again, quick live stream. I put out enough about it. I put out a video, put out a couple tweets, just did a TikTok on it. At Bryce Gelman. If you want to follow me on TikTok, I need the engagement. Please follow me. But there is such a double standard when it comes to what happened at the end of the game last night. If you missed it, Tim Hardaway Jr. on the last possession, there's around 12 seconds left. Cade Cunningham goes right at OG Anunoby, takes a little step back, misses the shot. The Pistons, and Tobias Harris specifically, he hooks Josh Hart. He commits a foul right there. I'm very interested to see what the L2M says about that, because that was a foul in and of itself. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. should never even had a chance to shoot that three. But the ball was kicked out to Tim Hardaway Jr. in the corner. He pump faked, got Josh Hart up in the air, and Josh Hart made contact with Tim Hardaway Jr. And the officials come out after the game in the press pool, whatever the hell. They ask questions to the press after the game. The press asks questions to the officials after the game, and they admitted that it was a foul and it should have been called. And I'm not going to sit here and complain about that. I'm not going to sit here and object to that assumption, that claim that it was a foul. It was a foul. It was, objectively. Let me just say that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you otherwise. I think I'm a pretty objective NBA fan. I can be very harsh on my teams. I can be very pessimistic at times. But I do feel that my takes and opinions are usually based in reality. And there are times in a game in which something goes the Knicks' way that shouldn't, that I'm able to admit that happened. Like if the Knicks get a call, the ball goes out of bounds, and very obviously last touch the Knicks player, I'm able to say, hey, maybe that should have been Knicks' ball. You know, it should have been the other team's ball. I think there are certain fans across the NBA, specific cities, specific teams that have a very difficult time admitting the truth. And the truth in yesterday's game is that at a certain point in said game, the officials decided for the millionth time in the series that they're going to eat their whistles and they're going to let a certain level of physicality slide in that game. And they did it yesterday. The middle of the game, all of a sudden, things that were a foul earlier on in the game were not a foul anymore. I was frustrated with it at the time, but, you know, you got to live with it. You can't complain. You got to go along with however the game is going. And that's what the Knicks did. The Knicks, time and time again, they did try to force the issue. They did try to drive the ball to the basket, and they did try to draw fouls, which they were not getting. Eventually, the Knicks, changed course, and they went about the game in the right way. And they went about their play in a way that could help them win the game. Jalen Brunson goes down at the end of the third quarter with that injury. You kind of thought the season could be over right there. We've seen it happen in the past. But no, Jalen Brunson goes to the locker room, comes back out to the bench with his knee or ankle, whatever was hurt, taped. And he came back in the game and proceeded to do what Jalen Brunson always does, and that is make clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot. And it's easy to say, oh, Jalen Brunson's a foul baiter and yada, yada, yada. 15 points in that fourth quarter. How many free throws? How many free throws, you might ask? Nada. 0. So it's very easy for Pistons fans to get on their high horse about the Knicks the refs stealing a game from the Pistons and going out of their way to complain. And you even saw JB Bickerstaff say something after the game. That shouldn't surprise anyone. But what I was the most surprised about, the official Pistons Twitter put out a tweet. They put out a tweet, which I think is one of the most pathetic tweets in the history of the Twitter X app. It was with the caption, blatant, period. With a quote graphic that says, from Tim Hardaway Jr., after the game, what he said to the press, he said one thing and then walked away. He answered one question and walked away. You guys saw it. blatant. End quote. Okay, fine. I get it. You're frustrated. You're angry about a call that didn't go your way at the end of the game. What you are refusing to understand and admit that up until that point, a ticky-tack foul like that was not getting called. The refs were allowing a certain level of physicality that was seen in that last play with the Josh Hart foul on Tim Hardaway Jr. And maybe the contact was irrefutable. And maybe in the general context of that game and what we saw, that would have constituted a foul. Maybe. We don't know. But from what I saw was the Knicks getting screwed time and time again on drives to the basket, on attempted rebounds, on ticky-tack plays, on loose balls, whatever, you name it, that were not called. And you got to suck it up and continue on. And that's what the Knicks did. Jalen Brunson, what he did in the fourth quarter was magnificent. And it's what we've come to expect from Jalen Brunson. I mean, how many times does this guy, in the face of adversity, meet the occasion? Does he rise up and meet the pressure of a certain situation? The guy is unbelievable. He is now double-digit points, 12 or more points, in every single fourth quarter in this series. Pistons fans can complain all they want on that final play of the game. What they should be focusing on is the fact that they were up 11 with 8:36 remaining. They had a 93.6% chance to win the game, and they blew it. And they have no one else to blame but themselves. This is the victim mindset and mentality that certain fans and certain teams can fall into. Certain coaches as well. You saw it last year with Nick Nurse and Rick Carlisle constantly complaining. When we watched with our own eyes a very evenly screwed up series, officiating wasn't good on both sides. Yet you still see the head coaches after the game complaining about what their team didn't get and not acknowledging that the other team may have gotten screwed as well. It was much of the same after the game with JB Bickerstaff, with the complaining. And it's very easy as a fan base to latch onto something like that and complain even more. When it's justified by your head coach, of course you're going to be more up in arms about it. Pistons fans have a right to be angry about the end of the game. But if they take a step back and they look at the game objectively, they lost that themselves. The way the game was officiated and the way it's been officiated for the majority of the series with the physical play allowed immensely favors the Pistons and their style of play. Like, is that not the truth? Are the Pistons not the more physical team? Do they not have more dogs? They do. And the Knicks, historically this season, even from what I've said a multitude of times on this Twitter account, wherever you're watching, YouTube, probably not on YouTube, on X, on TikTok, this Knicks team has lacked that toughness. They've lacked the hard-nosed mentality that so many Knicks teams before them have possessed. So, of course, in a series in which the whistles are being eaten by the officials, it will favor a team that they're going up against if said team is extremely physical. And that's who this Pistons team is. So it's very hard as a Knicks fan or someone who looks at the NBA objectively. I know I can't be biased at times. I work for SiriusXM NBA Radio. I hear a lot of unbiased basketball talk. I'd like to think that I'm a pretty unbiased observer of NBA basketball. And what I witnessed in that game was favorable no call after favorable no call after favorable no call for the Pistons all game long. And the one time, I understand it was in the biggest moment of the game, but the one time it goes against them, now they've got a problem with it. Now they've got a problem with the refs eating their whistle. Now they've got a problem with it with an egregious no call. How many times did Jalen Brunson in that fourth quarter drive to the basket on Dennis Schroeder or Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley, whoever the hell it was, get bumped And the continuation should have counted and won. How many tough shots did he hit through contact in that fourth quarter, throughout that game, where fouls were not called? Yet Pistons fans want to get all up in arms about one no call. And again, I'm interested to see the last 2-minute report from this game from the officials. And I want to see if they did, in fact, rule that Tobias Harris held Josh Hart on that rebound attempt at the end of the game, because there was undoubtedly a foul there. Pistons fans neglect to admit that as well. They want to point out the one thing that is in their favor, or obviously in that situation against their favor, against them, but it fits their argument. It fits what they want to say. It fits their narrative about the series, about that game, about them still complaining about their perceived backcourt from Jalen Brunson in Game 3, which was, of course, debunked. The NBA came out and said, that's not a backcourt. Pistons fans want to rewrite the rule book, be my guest. If they want to read it and understand the rules, you can also be my guest. And you can get on my level and the level of the majority of NBA fans who take what the NBA says at face value after the game. Is it frustrating that the NBA admits their mistakes afterwards and it doesn't change the outcome? Of course. The Knicks last year in Game 5 of the playoffs against the Sixers, they thought the series was won. Maxey steps into a 3 from 35 feet. He travels. It's not called. It is what it is. It is what it is. It sucked. I remember being frustrated about it, but you put your head down and you grind. You admit the mistake of allowing the team that you're playing to be in that position in the first place. So instead of the Pistons coming out and complaining and bitching and moaning and adapting this victim mentality and mindset, they should have come out and said, the last call did not go our way, but we blew this game. We blew this game. We were up 11 points in the game. We let the Knicks come back in this game when they absolutely should not have. Considering how bad the Knicks offense was in that third quarter, I thought an 11-point deficit, I mentioned this before, a 93.6% chance the Pistons had to win the game with 8:36 remaining, up 11. There's a reason why that number was so steep, and that's because there was an absolute lid on the basket for the Knicks up until that point. I thought the game and the lead was insurmountable. I thought the game was over. I tend to think a lot of games are over when they're in fact not. That's just me. But what I saw in that game was an evenly called game. It wasn't consistent, but it was an evenly called game during the consistent moments and trends of the game. And Pistons fans, I'm beating a dead horse at this point. I understand your frustration. I understand being up in arms about the call not going your way. Because at face value, that is unbelievably frustrating to watch. But it takes just a little bit more in-depth analysis for you to realize you lost this game on your own. You were largely favored by the style of play that was allowed by the officials. And the amount of times the Knicks should have gotten calls that they were not getting, that even the commentators were saying, well, there was a lot of contact there, but there was no call. Should have been enough for you to win that game. But taking this stance of we got screwed. Look at us. The NBA hates us. The NBA's out to get us. The Knicks are favored, but do you think that that's going to give you a better chance to come back and eventually win this series? I don't think so. The Knicks were able to win that game yesterday because they put their heads down. They adapted to the style of play that the officials were allowing. They didn't complain to the officials. They sometimes did, and it was warranted. But for the majority of the time, Jalen Brunson put his head down, finished through contact, and ran back down the court. Other guys were a little bit more upset. Cat being one of them. He was being hacked a little bit more than Brunson on rebounds, on drives. There's a lot of contact everywhere. But what the Knicks did near the end of that game, amongst a multitude of other reasons, is why they won that game, is shutting your mouth and playing basketball. not complaining, not adapting this victim mentality and mindset like the Pistons have done, playing through contact and not complaining when you play through said contact. That's why the Knicks won the game. That's why. Oh, and Mikal Bridges decided to show up in the fourth quarter with those 2 straight threes from that right corner. But he had a terrible game up until that point. He played a good game on defense. I'll give him that. We've seen throughout this year when Mikal Bridges does not have the shot working, he usually does not play good defense. We did not see that yesterday. He did a solid job against Cade when OG had to switch off of him and made it difficult at times for Cade Cunningham to get easy baskets. I'll give him that. And then he showed up when it mattered the most. Without those 2 threes, the Knicks do not come back in the game. It's like, okay, Mikal just stepped up. Now we have to step up our game collectively. And the Knicks did. They absolutely did. So credit to them for coming back in that game, for taking advantage of the various miscues from the Pistons down the stretch of that game, the various turnovers. I think Cade Cunningham had 6 turnovers in the game. If you look at every other stat, you think he had one of the best games in Pistons playoff history. And then you look at you go a little bit further down in the box score, you see the turnovers, and you're like, not as good as I thought. And I'd be remiss in saying that I didn't screw up and say Cade Cunningham was the better player in the series. I think was proven last night. It's proven in Game 3 that Jalen Brunson is the best player in the series. I only said that after Game 2 and what we witnessed there. And I think maybe if Cade Cunningham had another superstar alongside him, that things would be different. I think Cade Cunningham, you see a lot of turnovers for him because he's playing with legitimate bums. Like, I think it's impressive what Cade Cunningham has done with how little he has surrounding him. He does have shooters. It's not like he has no spacing. Like, it's not like, LeBron of the mid-2000s where he's got no shooters around him. It's very difficult for him to create. This isn't the case. And Nice says Jalen Brunson, then Cat, and then Cade. I think that's fair after what we witnessed yesterday. And let me just, you got to give flowers to Karl-Anthony Towns. Hit, in my opinion, the toughest shot in recent Knicks history. The turnaround over Duren, over the back of the basket. I don't understand how that went in. I don't understand how that swished like it swished. I mean, what else can you say about Karl-Anthony Towns at the end of that game? The 3-pointer that he hit, of course, to put the Knicks up by 1, which is obviously it held, and that was the final score. He showed up when it mattered the most. And as I said yesterday, my reaction video, he earned his Knicks stripes. Absolutely. Knicks won this game because of a multitude of reasons. One of them being, the Pistons shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. They won the game because of Karl-Anthony Towns' clutch shots at the end. Above all else. Like, everything else happened. The Knicks got, again, they got screwed on no calls. They came back and they fought their way through contact, hit some big shots, but they don't win that game if Towns doesn't step up. Because I tweeted it right before right after I saw it starting to take place at the end of that fourth quarter, that Brunson hero iso ball can only work in limited instances. If that is your be-all, end-all over the course of a 5-minute stretch of a quarter at the end of a game, it's unsustainable. Jalen Brunson will get his way a lot of the time, but the issue with Jalen Brunson controlling the ball and doing, the hero iso ball is that it doesn't allow for the other amazing creators on this Knicks team to create with the amount of attention that is going to be focused on Jalen Brunson. And this is the part of the argument that I make about Cade potentially being the best player in this series talent-wise is if the majority of the attention of the defense is constantly on you, it's harder for someone to create. Jalen Brunson, he's got 3 guys draped all over him. If he's able to start moving the ball around the perimeter, it is inevitably going to get someone a wide open shot. And we saw it with the Cat 3 before the fadeaway, and before the deep 3, the corner 3, where Jalen took a step in, drew Duren just slightly away from Cat, where he was, of course, about 10 to 15 feet away, and Brunson firing a bullet pass, giving Cat the amount of time that he needed to take and hit that three. So the Knicks did what I wanted them to do. Get the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands, allow other guys to create, allow other guys to do what they do best, and that's hit shots. That's what the Knicks did, and that's another reason why they won this game. Cat hit the big shots, but if Jalen held the ball in his hands the rest of that game, the Knicks don't win it. Jalen Brunson can only do so much. 15 points is just unbelievable. And again, as we've seen throughout the course of the series, 12 or more points in the fourth quarter each and every game. They don't call him Captain Crunch for a reason. He didn't win the Clutch Award, the Clutch Player of the Year award for no reason. Nice also says Jalen ISO will also work when he does not have others that can create, and clearly that is not the case. Exactly. But over a long stretch of game, it never will work. It never will. That is what we've seen in bad Knicks losses against good teams this year. Over the course of the fourth quarter, look at what happened in game 2 against the Pistons this series. Cat shoots the ball once in the second half. Jalen puts up 27 shots in a game that was absolutely winnable. They lose because Jalen decides to hold the ball. And players after the game, you could sense from their body language, were very upset with that. And obviously something changed. And it was an inevitability. I think everyone could predict that. Everyone and their mothers knew that was coming. And we saw it from the start of game 3 until the end of this past game in game 4. Karl-Anthony Towns getting involved and being the 1B option next to 1A Brunson. Because that's an equivalent for Brunson. There are not many other players in the NBA that could be considered equivalents on the offensive end. The Knicks have one in Karl-Anthony Towns. So there you go. Cat, amazing job at the end of the game, hitting those shots. Pistons fans, I get it. I get the frustration, but look objectively at what happened in this game, and you'll be a little bit less upset. So you didn't get screwed. You screwed yourself. And that's just how things work. Playoff basketball, physical play. They're not going to call things that are obvious fouls. Sucks to suck. Pistons got away with a lot in that game. The Knicks got away with the biggest moment at the end of the game. It was payback. Karma's a bitch. All right, that'll do it for today. Again, as I said, short. I already did a bunch of other stuff. Check me out on TikTok. Check me out on YouTube. Check me out on Twitter. I'm sure you're already on here on Twitter. But yeah, check me out wherever. I'll be doing a lot more Knicks stuff this week. Game 5 is tomorrow night at the Garden. It cost an exorbitant amount of money to get in. I just don't understand a Game 5 against the Pistons with the series 3-1. Man, it sucks. It sucks being a Knicks fan, not being able to afford playoff tickets. It sucks. But what are you going to do? Again, that'll do it for today. I will talk to you all very soon. Peace.